position on having one valley-wide city?
Joseph Kelly. I was here last week at the City Council Forum, and that question came up. The consensus of the City Council candidates was that it's very difficult. There is a different spirit between the east and the west side of the valley. Eventually, it could work, but it's a very difficult thing, incorporating part of the east side of the Big Bear Valley, and then there's also Fawnskin. If it's a valley-wide cityhood that's very ambitious, it's something that should be looked into, but it's a long-term thought. You have to think about that very hard. There are some people, as it was mentioned last week, that enjoy living in a county rather than a city. There are different feelings. If it's beneficial to the valley as a whole, that's great. There could be some mutual strengths added by working together, but it's a very difficult, that's a tough nut to crack. Have to put some pressure on that. So in a long term, it could work, but it has to be looked at very, very strongly. And then we would be looking at other cities where if we became a big city in the valley, we would be amongst other cities rather than just a county. So it's something to look at, but it's very ambitious.
I'm sorry you asked. I've been here since 1974. And we've got some beautiful neighbors here on the west end. And we're on the east end. And the word division has always been there. And I'd like to sort of see the word division change someday. But unfortunately, the cost of living on this end of town is a tremendous amount more than on the other end of town. We've had some fine city council members through the years, and we've got some very, very good ones now. I happen to know each and every one of them. I think we need to see how this fire merger goes, because as far as JPA is concerned, we're talking about Big Bear City and Big Bear Lake, but you got to remember you got Fawnskin and you got Baldwin Lake. So if you ever decided to do this, it needs to be a total valley-wide of everything. But then at the same time, when you look at the budget of Big Bear Lake and you look at the budget of Big Bear City and the amount of people living in Big Bear City, there must be a reason for it. Unfortunately, I'm in Sugarloaf, so I pay a hell of a price for water, which is ridiculous. Anyhow, thank you, Miss Yellow.
Paul Terry. Actually, since we've lived up here since '81, we've actually owned property since 1970. And I don't know how many times that issue has come up. I think a lot of what can happen in the future depends on how we handle the fire department consolidation now. And there's a ways to go even on that, which might give us an answer as to what we're able to do in the future, because the plan for the fire department is to pull in both Fawnskin and also Baldwin Lake. And if we can do that and everyone seems to be happy, I think there is a chance for the future of doing other things. There is a distinct difference, though, between the people living in the county area and those in the city as far as what they're looking for and what they're expecting. I don't think the differences are quite as much now as what they were back in 1970, but I do remember at one time division was division, but I'm not so closed-minded to say that for the future things can't be different. Thank you.
Larry Walsh. I've lived here more than 50 years. I'm a product of this school system, and I remember all the votes it took to form the city in the first place. It started out valley-wide, and that failed. They tried to take it just to South Shore. That failed. Finally, they got it centered around the Village L, and it carried. But you have to remember things like condemning the water system in 1989 with the concept that they would do it more efficiently. The system was old, water supply was inadequate. They've had 22 years, the supply is still inadequate, the system is still a mess. There is not clearly defined benefit, to me at least at this time, to merge and make one valley-wide city. We have at least four different cultures, 4 different population centers, and has been brought up, we've got 4 different fire agencies, and we're only talking about merging 2 at this time. There's a lot of work to be done. It could hold promise, but at the moment, I don't see the benefit. Thank you.
Karen Oxandabor. I also agree with what Larry said. There are so many different areas that we would have to combine that it would just be almost impossible. I think there are some things, some areas, for instance, maybe the sewer lines or the water lines that could possibly be merged at one time, but to merge the special district with the city, I don't think that would be necessary at this time.
Bob Ibarra. In the perfect world, or the make-believe world, it's a real nice idea to have the whole valley under one entity, but I really don't see that happening. I know that I agree with the gentleman down at the end that let's take the fire departments first. I know that there had been talk a few years ago about water departments joining forces or sharing water. So that's another step down the road. But you know, I like the rest. I hate division, that street. It just, something about it. You know, we're all the same people. We just live on opposite ends of the valley, and we all have the same problems, the same struggles. And I really feel like we all need to work together, period, no matter what. And as soon as that name is changed, I think you're going to, it's a psychological thing as far as I'm concerned. You're going to see a little bit more cooperation between both sides. But I think it's doing well right now. When I first got here 8, 9 years ago, I was told the history, and there was everybody on the west side hate everybody on the east side, and you know, never the paths shall meet. But you know, that's not really true. I've seen a lot of changes happening over the last couple of years. We got a great city council. Our CSD board is wonderful. So I just want to add to that. That's why I'm here tonight. But as far as making it all one valley, I don't see that happening for another 10, 15 years maybe. But it is a wonderful thought to think about.
Next question is for you. Looking at the other candidates that you are running against, if elected, what would you bring to the CSD board that would be different than they might bring to the position?
Well, I have no idea what they might bring to the position, but with my many, many years of experience at CSD and all the meetings and everything, presently we've got a very good board that's sitting there. So I do support the 3 that's there now. I think they've done a hell of a job in the recent months since some of the people that were in there is out of there. Myself personally, we do know we've had to raise CSD because we haven't raised since 2006, which is sort of a no-no, but it's something that had to be done because you can't keep reaching into the savings account and accomplishing what we're accomplishing. Myself personally, with all the experience that I've had with CSD, and I believe me, I've got plenty of it, I think a lot of work in the future, and I think the folks that's sitting on the board presently, and then if they return, we need to start concentrating on costs within the agency that we can do some big change in. We got a lot of work to do in that area. One of the fortunate things are we got the finest employees in the world. They do a fantastic job. They haven't had a raise since 2006, and I don't even think they're asking for one. But the bottom line, we need to look at the cost in those different departments and what can we do to help employees, to help get the numbers down a little bit. If we're going to ask the people for an increase, fine. But then at the same time, in all the departments, we have to show the people on the east end at the same time where we're saving money. And so that would be one of the things that I would be concentrating on. Thank you.
Paul Terry. Obviously, my interest kind of lies in finance and I think accounting, and I think that's the thing that I can bring to the table. One thing that I've learned since I've gotten on the board at the CSD is this almost kind of goes into my closing statement, but I'll bring it out now. One of the things I think that a board member has to do is whenever they make a financial decision, not only look at what the effect is on the board and the district at the time they're making the decision, but what happens later. Pretty good example is, I think Larry mentioned, we've had a series of years where there's no increase in fees, and we also had a difference where, again, back in 2006, there was a decision by a prior board to change the benefits. What happened 2 years later? Suddenly, there was a huge side fund created. So my point is, you have to look at what you're doing not only for today when you make a financial decision, but you have to look at the effects in the long run, because sometimes you'll find that what decision you made today may not have been the best decision if you looked at all of the facts. Thank you.
Larry Walsh. Looking in terms of the 3 candidates for the 4 years, I think back, I've attended virtually every meeting in the last 12 years. There was a time when the CSD was fodder for the Grizzlies weekly interest page. I would hope that I can bring a level, calm attitude, discuss things as adults, and try to separate myself from the encampments that we've seen in the past with a 2-3 vote or a 3-2, and you're rotten lousy because you won't vote my way. We don't need that. We need to work as a team. I don't have a professional background in the economics that Mr. Terry does, but I can at least support him and listen to what he says and perhaps throw support to what he says when sometimes we hear that, oh God, it's gloom and doom again. Can't you come up with something better? I'm sorry, but finance is a big part of our future, and we need to look at it.
I guess I get to hold it.
Trade you.
No,
Glasses.
oh yeah, it's been up to him.
Well, Karen Oxandabor, I bring to the table history. I've been at the district since, like I said, 1985, and I have learned so much about the district. Like I also said before, about each department. I know the operations, the responsibilities. I was able to answer any questions that customers were to ask about the district and about their bills. I also have a knowledge of how the board is supposed to function. I figured I've probably taken minutes for at least 500 meetings in my life, and that's sitting through a lot of meetings. And I think I can bring to the board a sense of, I'm losing my, I bring to the board a calmness in our talking about situations. We can agree to disagree and live with what we voted for. Thank you.
Bobby Barra. Where I differ from Karen, who is right now the appointed incumbent, I tend to be a little more vocal and share my feelings more. I think that's part of the responsibility of a director, in this case appointed, but an elected official, where the public counts on you to bring things up at meetings, discuss issues at length, and I think that's one area that I would be real strong at. One of the things that I'm really, really happy about is the fact that I know how to work well. We're talking about the whole valley. I work well with all the officials. I know the board members on a lot of these boards. In 2010, because of my personality, I pursued something that hadn't been done before. That was, for many years, the DWP customers in the East Valley were not able to be appointed because of the city charter, and I was told I was crazy, but I kept going to the city council meetings every 2 weeks. Finally, in November of 2010, it was on the ballot. I had the support of the DWP board and the city council to allow all ratepayers to be eligible to be put on that board. It had passed overwhelmingly, so I really feel like I have a good personality to work with boards, and especially with this board, to get things done for a positive thing. Thank you.
Joseph Kelly. Going last, to repeat the question, looking at the other candidates, what would I bring that's different to the board? Perhaps imagination, perhaps some humor, but above all that, I would like to bring more openness and public participation, keeping the public informed. I would like to see on the website, some districts here in the Valley have the agendas, some don't. Some have the minutes, some don't. Some things are there, some things are hard to find. I would like to see, now that we have the internet, it would be interesting to see all of the meetings of every district streamed on the internet, or at least available in some way on the internet, and have a way for the public to perhaps by email ask questions and participate in meetings of the board, either in real time or beforehand, in adherence to the Brown Act. And the CSD provides services, water, trash pickup, things like that, but it's also our local government. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Grizzly. As I was preparing to come here tonight, I looked in on the Grizzly, and there's a special meeting of the healthcare district with about 26 hours notice, and I thank them for letting us know about that. I would like to see a little more notice. I mentioned this last time about notice with the healthcare district and openness in all of our government.
The next question goes to Paul.
Be my guest.
Thank you.
Paul, the public employee pension reform is a critical issue for our future solvency of our district, city, county, and state. What measures would you take to assure that the CSD avoid expensive pension costs and possible insolvency?
Paul Terry, this is something that actually, I went to a conference in San Diego a couple weeks ago, California Spatial Districts. This is something that all the districts are talking about. I think, again, we have to go back to our individual districts and analyze where we stand financially and forecast forward as to what we can afford, because this is a serious problem. It's one that we found ourselves in when we came on the board, and we faced a $1,700,000 per side fund as far as the general service employees, and the fire department about a $1,100,000 side fund. And so we're not unique in the problem, but to be honest with you, I can't sit here tonight and give you a concrete answer. It would be wrong for me to try. But what I can say is this is something that the board is going to have to look at real soon to make sure that we're down the right path. And yes, there may have to be some changes made, something that will take and put the district on a better financial footing into the future. Thank you.
Larry Walsh. Either last week or the week before, it was in the news that the City of Los Angeles has negotiated some changes in their retirements. But they finally had to admit that you won't see the benefit of these changes for 20, 30, perhaps even 40 years, because the new hires will finally kick into a lower cost system. Our employees at the CSD, both in the fire department and general employees, have worked with us the last few MOUs, labor negotiations. They've given up cost of living increases to try and help us ride out rough times. They're also working with us in terms of benefits. We have made promises to them. They have a right to expect that we will continue their benefits that they've been promised, but we do need to look into other ways to fund them and ways to cut costs.
Karen Oxandabor, I agree that some changes do need to be made, and our failure to do so would possibly cause a collapse of the system. it's just like the Social Security or any of the other things like that that right now are being questioned. We need to take a look at it. I don't have the expertise to know what to suggest, but we have made some promises to the employees, and the employees have been willing to not take raises, and I'm sure we will be able to agree on, I know they're realistic, they know what's happening, and things will have to be done.
Bob Ybarra. I'm not going to try to reinvent the situation here. I don't know. I'm not totally familiar with all the pensions, but I do know that we are making strides to. One of the steps that they talked about is, lowering the age or raising the age for retirement benefits for the new employees. That will take effect many years from now, as they've stated. So, one of the things that I can say is that I want to, at all costs. Well, no, I can't say all costs. I want to protect the CSD employees because they work hard and they're always there. And one of the things we need to do is to recognize that how important they are. So they've gone without raises. They're sitting back. We can demand, the unions could take a hard line and demand their rightful due at the expense of the public and the service level. So everybody working together like they're doing now is important, and we have to continue that. The rest of this will be ironed out later as we go along. Right now, I don't have any much more to add to that, except for we're on the right road. I really feel strongly about Director Terry and the decisions he's making, recommending to the board, because he is very knowledgeable in that area. But once again, I really can't add too much more to that. Thank you.
Joseph Kelly. I think the answer is to have every interest represented at the table to look into every aspect of it. The employees strongly represented, the taxpayer citizens strongly represented, factual information about what can be done and what cannot be done, and look at the money that's available and look towards the future. And if everybody's at the table and with a spirit of working together, I think we can make it through the tough times and get into the better times ahead. CSD has about 75 employees with their families. That's probably 300 or 400 people whose livelihood is depending on CSD, and that's very important. They're not only employees, they're community members, they are taxpayers and customers of CSD. I think everybody should be at the table and strongly represented, and we'll all find a way together.
I'm going to laugh. Would you repeat the question, please?
Not a problem. The public employee pension reform is a critical issue for the future solvency of our district, city, county, and state. What measure would you take to assure that the CSD avoids excessive pension costs and possible insolvency?
I've been accused of being the 6th board member over there through the many years, and sometimes I think I am. But out of all my experience and all the meetings and everything, I'm going to make it short and sweet when it comes to the folks on the counter here and what Mr. Larry said and Mr. Terry and Karen. They're making some very good steps forward on these different subjects, and it just takes time to put some of these different programs together with new employees coming in and looking different ways of saving money with, workman's comp, all kinds of things. So I have to more or less roll along with my partners to the left here.
Next question is for Larry. Larry,